Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am, first and foremost, very, very sorry, Ms. Malinowski. As the wife of a SWAT medic from one wife to another, I am deeply apologetic, and I can't even begin to understand the pain and suffering that you and your family are going through. My husband, as I said, who is a SWAT medic, when we heard about this case, he was so thoroughly disgusted and heartbroken. That is truly, I believe, not a reflection on the good men and women in law enforcement that intend to do their jobs the best they can, and we are so very sorry. Mr. Chairman, I am also deeply disappointed that the discussion today has been centered around ways to restrict constitutional rights to law-abiding citizens instead of the mental health crisis that we face in this country, which is a massive driver of crime in this country. Also, very little has been talked about when we're discussing the overgrown, overly aggressive, and woefully inadequate administrative state. And so with that, I'm gonna jump right into Mr. Kleckner. Thank you for returning back to Congress to provide testimony. And in a March 10th, 2023 Judiciary Subcommittee on the administrative state, you addressed the ATF stabilizing rule, brace rule. In your testimony, you said, quote, "This rule effectively gives the ATF the power to determine who is a felon by the stroke of a bureaucrat's pen. This is not an appropriate enforcement of law. It is tyranny," end quote. And I agree with you. What is sad is that in this rule, we are seeing a microcosm of what is happening at other federal agencies. The American people are under assault by the Biden administration's regulatory regime from all corners of the federal government. That is why I introduced the REINS Act. As many of you know, the bill would address regulatory overreach by requiring every new major rule proposed by federal agencies be approved by Congress before going into effect. This is the reassertion of Article I authority that is how the Founding Fathers intended, not unelected, nameless, faceless bureaucrats arbitrarily dictating law. After all, we know that Americans pay $2 trillion a year in additional compliance costs, economic loss for this aggressive regulatory regime. The stabilizing brace rule and ATF zero tolerance policy are prime examples of regulations that not only impose compliance costs on firearm retailers, but infringe on Americans' basic Second Amendment rights. So I'm gonna go down the line and I'm gonna come right back to you. Mr. Cummins, yes or no, should federal agencies be able to shift criminal statutes and rewrite law?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Sampson.
That's not what happened here. They're enforcing
I did not ask
congressional
that. I
rule.
asked for a yes or no. Should federal agencies be arbitrarily able to write law?
No, and that's not what happened
Okay,
here.
thank you. Mr. Graham?
No, Congresswoman.
Mr. Kleckner?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Kleckner, my understanding is that this rule disregards ATF's own approval of stabilizing braces in 2012, correct?
This current zero tolerance policy rule? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Regarding how they classified the pistol braces as an accessory, therefore not subject to full ATF regulatory standards.
Right.
So in the time since they approved them in 2012 to today, ATF has done a full 180 on the issue and has chosen to impose erroneous regulations on firearm accessories that were originally intended for disabled veterans, correct?
That's true, and upon which people relied upon their opinion when they were acting, and they're now in trouble for.
Absolutely. And the owners of these firearms would now be committing a felony if they did not register, surrender, or destroy the accessory.
Correct, which means their right to even possess a firearm for the rest of their life is now gone.
Exactly. Did Congress ever approve this legislatively?
No, ma'am.
Can you quickly outline the specific penalties for failing to register a pistol brace under this rule?
Quickly, yes, felony.
Financial as well?
Oh, for sure. Defending yourself, financial costs, losing the right to protect yourself or have firearms in the future, all those things.
Right. And so now that this rule is being litigated in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, considering the rule has criminal implications, can you speak to the risks associated with circumventing the legislative process in this case?
The risks now going forward, or even companies don't know what they're supposed to do because it changes back and forth so many times. I think people are afraid, as someone said earlier, about what they're supposed to do, what they're going to get in trouble with, whose guidance they're supposed to follow. It's all unclear.
I appreciate that, and I know my time is expiring. I have a list of questions for you, Mr. Graham, that I will submit for the record, but I think it is clear that what we are seeing today, particularly under the ATF, is a gross overreach, a weaponization of the federal government in its true form. It's something that I think Republicans, Democrats, and all Americans should be equally concerned about. With that, I yield.
Generally yields back. The gentleman